all of this is like a lot of spoilers here. We probably should have said that at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Y-
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Y-
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Y-
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right.
All right.
Welcome to the podcast. I am
Welcome.
Michael Gigante, and this is Bryce
Stout. Yep.
Stout.
That's me.
All right. We're going to talk about Hereditary and Incredibles 2. So we're going to start with some general thoughts. Bryce, what was your thoughts of Hereditary 2? Or
Well-
1?
Well, for the most part, I liked it a lot, actually. Especially specifically what got me was the family dynamics. I thought they were incredibly well done. It really had me invested.
Yeah, I was like I was particularly interested in like the whole dynamic between like the mother and the son within that.
Yeah.
And like, you know what was funny when like I went to go see this with a buddy of mine, like Hoffman, and when we were watching it, like, you know, that little the little girl, like the sister,
Yeah.
she, like, I thought from the beginning of that movie she was gonna be like a really annoying trope in the movie, you know?
Yeah.
Like that part was, she was, they kind of like had that forced creepy child in there, and I didn't like that. But then like what, like 15 minutes into the movie, like, just no, that's not what happens. She
15
spoiler,
minutes.
she loses a body part and is gone for the rest of the movie, basically.
Yeah.
Like the movie wasn't like intense too, because like I thought it wasn't necessarily like scary, but it was just really creepy, you know? Like
Yeah.
it built this atmosphere around it that while you were watching, you were like getting the anticipation, like, oh, there's gonna be a jump scare here, but it's not really like a jump scare. It kind of just like sucks you in with the very creepy imagery, and some of it is very grotesque too. Like they don't like shy away from it. They'll show you something that is just like, oh, and then it'll cut away from that, and then it'll go to like a normal like conversation, and
Yeah.
like that part, like it kind of established the fact, like the tone of the movie really early.
It did. Yeah, it establishes this kind of slow tone that's like really atmospheric, and it also gets you really invested in this family, and you're like in their emotional reality, and then those work together to kind of bring you this like complete shock and horror of this spoiler that happens 15 minutes into the movie. I
Right,
thought,
yeah. I mean, like, the funny thing though is like, I feel like this movie really was more about like the mother and the son than it was anybody else, and more
Yeah.
specifically, it like focuses on the mother of this family, and like, I mean, basically the movie starts with the grandmother of the family dying and the mother giving a eulogy, and like I said, it kind of starts the tone there. Like, it's dark, and you know, she has like this whole like weird little mini city thing that's going on, like that she's building, which I think was a nice little. I don't know. They add some foreshadowing in there, or there's some symbolism with
Oh
it.
yeah.
You know,
Like those little marks that are left everywhere. Like you can see it on the pole. It's in that the book of the grandmothers.
right?
Yeah.
You know, like the funny thing too is like my friend like who I went to go see it with, there's like an actual witch, like there's a real like Wiccan thing in there. I can't remember what it was called.
There's
Let me see what the
a king of hell, right?
right. It was
Yeah.
like the king of hell.
And the daughter
Yep.
was like the reincarnation of it, but it was supposed to be a guy.
Yeah. So it's like the whole thing kind of is a very slow build too. Like and you get the sense of that from the beginning, and almost to an extent that it's like a little too slow. You know, you're like, if this doesn't pick up soon, I might lose interest, or it's just going to be another one of those independent films that kind of loses you, or it's just like it's too caught up with trying to build as opposed to, just like giving some release here.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I never,
Yeah.
I never really felt like I was losing interest at all. Actually, the quiet movies have really grown on me.
Yeah, I thought it was just like the first like 30 minutes of it where like, the whole thing with the sister and the brother and the mother.
And the
By the way,
grandmother.
like we should probably like mention the names. so
Yeah, the character
uh,
names or the actors.
both. So like this is a very small cast. Like I'm on Wikipedia here. There's only 5 people. The mother, who I refer to as Mother here, is Annie Graham, played by Toni Collette, and the
Yeah,
son is Peter, Alex
Alex
Wolff
Wolff.
from
Yeah,
Naked Brothers band right there.
yeah.
Dude, he's so funny though. Like in the movies that I watch him in, like when I saw him, I think he was in that Patriots Day. He kind of always has this look like he's lost and he just doesn't know what he's doing in the movie. Like, oh yeah, shit, he was in Jumanji too.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I actually recognized him throughout the movie, but I couldn't place where he's from, and it turns out I'm actually more familiar with his brother, Nat Wolff. Yeah.
Really. I know he still does music and stuff.
I had to look it up because I knew I recognized him, but I was actually recognizing his brother. It's interesting.
It's a little weird when you like go into a movie and the only person you know is a guy from a TV show that you watched when you were 6. So like that's always a weird thing, but at the same time, like it gives you less less expectations.
Yeah.
Like less like when
You
you
go
have a
in,
bigger actor in these independent movies, you're kind of expecting it to be really well shot and well made, which to most independent movies like cinematography cinematography usually isn't the issue. It's like usually a script or maybe the story isn't so
yeah.
strong.
Yeah,
But like here,
cinematography is oftentimes one of the stronger points of a film.
right, and
Yeah.
and actually, like this film, like we mentioned, like the symbolism and imagery in the film, it's very well shot too. And it's funny. I look it up. Like what is it? A little over 2 hours, right?
I think so, yeah. It
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
little
So
under. Yeah, it's
yeah,
2 hours and 7 minutes.
yeah, 2 hours and 7 minutes. But like, it definitely feels that time for the first hour, and then like after, I think it starts to rev up like towards the middle point where like the mother just starts to I keep calling her mother
She kind
Annie.
of
Annie
yeah.
starts to
She befriends
like
Joan, right?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a couple weeks since I've seen this, but yeah,
Yeah, for me
Joan
too. Played by Ann Dowd, who I
and
thought
Dowd.
was amazing, actually. And Toni Collette. Those two are both amazing.
Well, it's like another thing in the movie is like you see the mental like degrega- degradation of Annie. She's really been like
Yeah.
pushed so far, and it's like you kind of get the like why, but at the same time it's just like she only goes to that Joan person, and then like the that's kind of how the plot progresses is through Joan.
With Annie, I think she really didn't want her relationship with her daughter to be like her relationship with her mom, because that
Yeah.
was kind of broken. And then her daughter dies, and all hell breaks loose for her emotionally.
Right, right. I think like wasn't she starting to see some like weird shit too? Like she was starting to hallucinate in like towards the
I think
middle of the
so.
movie.
They
Yeah, like
start they
she'd have
start
like these really fucked up nightmares. Like
yeah,
one of the things like
sleepwalking too.
right. She
Yeah.
started like sleepwalking, and it's just like the entire time you're wondering like, is she going to like do something to her son? Like there's this whole dynamic between them after the daughter, like Charlie, dies. You don't know whether or not like she's gonna break and go crazy and kill this. Like, honestly, throughout the entire movie, like, Peter has that lost look, like I said, but it's like with justification, because you're in the exact same spot as Peter. You're like, what the fuck is going on right now?
It's like he thinks his mother loves him, but she did pour kerosene on him as a kid while
Yeah,
sleepwalking. You know,
that part like really tripped me out. You know, like I was like, what the fuck?
yeah. So
Like, so
it's
like off the get go, you already know that the mother is not like okay.
yeah, and I think that's why it's called Hereditary, because the grandmother, you know, she was kind of messed up, and the mother didn't really want to be like that, but here she is
Right.
having this condition where she's having these waking nightmares, like while sleepwalking, of
Right.
murdering her children, and then her daughter is the reincarnated king of hell. Um,
Right.
so it's like it gets worse every generation in a way.
Yeah, that's like an interesting thing. You know, bringing it back too to like her little miniature art stuff that she was doing. I kind
Yeah,
of wonder like if that like her personality or like some of the shit she like was seeing, like it goes before this movie, like what she makes is like her nightmares and stuff like that. Like that'd be an interesting concept. There's like a lot of stuff in the movie that, you know, requires a second watch to
yeah.
ingest and like understand, because like when I left the movie, I had a pretty good idea of what was going on towards like the last 30 minutes, but it was just like by the end it's going by so fast. Like there's so much that happens at the end, like if you're
Yeah.
not paying attention you're gonna be so confused, like so confused.
Yeah, it's all the tiny details having a much larger role in the plot. Yeah, if you didn't pick them up, then you're gonna feel a little bit behind.
Yeah, like I always like I always felt like I was kind of a little behind when I saw it pretty late too. Like I think I saw it at like like 11 or something, and when I got out of it, it was like 1. So like I said, how the first hour was kind of slow. Like if you definitely should watch this like early in the day or just whenever you're like you set time to be
Yeah,
focused, you know.
I saw it at like 10 a.m. So I think I was pretty awake too.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely. Well, I mean, it definitely
It
keeps
would
you awake at
probably
the end.
yeah, it would wake you up anyway.
You know what's funny? Like I say that this is a slow build, but this is not like atypical of A24. You know, like The Witch.
Yeah.
That movie was so slow, but it at the same time it was the exact same kind of tone. You know, it's creepy.
Yeah.
I don't even think we even mentioned the soundtrack too. The soundtrack was phenomenal.
Yeah, I didn't notice it much actually, but it did kind of had this like atmosphere that creeps up on you.
Right.
Yeah.
I think as well like the I'm a big fan of like minimalism in filmmaking and
Hmm.
music at the same time, and I think that a lot of good films, the minimalism definitely comes within the soundtrack, and that's a good way to build tension.
Yeah, it's that thing you don't notice it's there, but it's like slowly causing like extra tension for the movie. It's like in Gravity, essentially. Uh, they used a whole bunch of midtones, which essentially unnerve you, but like you don't always notice it.
Oh, is that the I've heard of that within like
The Alfonso
movies.
Cuarón film, yeah.
Yeah, like they use these frequencies that are very like guttural that you don't really notice, but they cause like a psychological reaction to your body, like that
Yeah.
makes you very creeped out. Like the same thing happens like with if you ever walked into like like a abandoned building or something, like something that's just like you find creepy. There's a good theory that it's just like there's a low frequency coming through that
Yeah, like
building that
room noise,
you're
I suppose.
right. Room noise, exactly.
And creaking wood.
I
They
feel
all
like
fall in
that's
that.
something A24 has just perfected. Is just like,
Yeah.
hey, we can creep you out by doing so little, but just making you feel so creepy.
Yeah, it's a common musical technique in lots of horror scores.
Mm,
Those midtones, because
right.
they do set you on edge.
Do you have any like final thoughts for the movie?
Huh. Well, I thought it was really thematically consistent. Uh, at least in terms of family. Like you've got the whole thing where the mother has her sculptures and then the daughter makes her messed up art. And you've got how each generation is progressively more messed up until they're a reincarnated king of hell. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I like as we talk about it more, I'm remembering more about the movie, and specifically like there was a lot that does happen in the first 15 minutes of the movie with Charlie and Annie. Like I said it was slow, but like the good thing about being a slow movie is you really get to build the characters and understand them. And like I really like that this was such a small cast too, so it's sort of like I don't know, if not like the same movie, but like if you've watched 127 Hours or Buried,
Yes,
like where it's like one person carrying up the entire film, like that.
it's
I
it's a
love that.
very personal journey. Yeah,
Right. I love that if it's done well, and it's also like very impressive to watch because it's like if you have to hold somebody's attention for over an hour, like not being a comic and it's just with a story, that takes some talent.
yeah.
But I don't know, like as a I guess this what would you call this, like a quasi horror thriller movie? Maybe
Hmm.
like even a little bit of mystery.
I suppose, yeah, it's kind of a thriller, an emotional family thriller with very unsettling horror esque sensibilities, I suppose.
It'd be a great movie to watch with your family, right?
Yeah, I saw it with my sister actually, so
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah, I did.
That's hilarious.
Isn't it?
That I guess like
Yeah.
if I were gonna give this a review out of 10, I'd probably give it about an 8.5.
Yeah, I think I'd give it about an 8.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
like I said, like I really enjoyed the movie, but I think the things that held it back were, I would say, is the just the beginning. You know, like maybe if we made that a little bit shorter, just a little bit, and I don't know. Like I thought at the beginning that the sister was quite very annoying, and that probably affected my opinion of the movie throughout it until you watch like the whole last hour, and then it's kind of like you forget about that. But you know, if you go in and watch it again, you're still gonna be irritated by that fact. I'm just gonna say it like that girl was very very annoying.
Yeah, I thought she did a good job though. At
She did
least
do a good
in terms
job, but
of being like a creepy kid.
yeah, she did do a
Yeah.
good job being like the creepy part of that kid. But at the same time, I was just like I didn't like her, like
Yeah.
her in the movie, like her character. It was so weird.
I
It was
personally
weird in a good way, but weird in a bad way. I guess I'm very
hmm.
split with this.
For me personally, I was really kind of invested in her because she was kind of weirder or an underdog kind of character, and you want to sympathize with those kinds of people. Uh, and then they kind of turn it around and do the big reveal at the end, where okay, so she was evil after all.
Right.
Uh, you know, I guess I just want the best for people who seem to be struggling, but
Yeah.
you know.
Well, that's a very noble thing of you.
Even if they're cutting heads off birds. Uh,
Yeah, that was
as
pretty weird.
I suppose I didn't have complete sympathy by that point, but
Well,
I was trying. I was trying.
the best part of that though is like when she goes back to her whole tree house, and then there's just like a bunch of dead animal heads there, and I'm just like
Yeah,
this is psychotic. Also, like the mother just let this happen. See, this is where we get into the nitpicking when you look at
yeah,
movies like this. Like she just was completely okay with that. Like you tell me what mother's okay with a bunch of dead animals in a house. Like she was there too. You know
yeah.
she was there.
I think she was just trying to, because she had a bad relationship with her mother. She just wanted to be more accepting of her daughter, regardless of what her flaws might be.
Right. Well, like the thing is though, was it really emphasizing the whole mother daughter like relationship there?
I think it
'Cause,
was the
I mean, in like the
daughter, mother, and
first
grandmother and son.
right in the
Yeah,
first like 30 minutes, I think you're definitely right. It was like the mother daughter relationship, but then
and
it like switches to mother son relationship,
hmm,
and like it's kind of weird. There's nothing really to compare it as far as like the movie's own background. You know, like you can compare the mother and the grandmother from what the stories of Annie is telling, but not so much with the mother and the son. Of course, there is like the background, like we said, with her dousing him with kerosene, but
yeah.
I don't know. There's there's just a lot going on in this movie, and I think for my benefit and everybody else, like I'm gonna watch this again when it comes out on DVD.
Yeah, I might too.
Yeah. So now transitioning over to other family dynamics and a more lighter side, Incredibles
Another.
2.
Yep.
Yep. Oh my goodness, I was so excited. You, me, and a bunch of other people from 2005 have been waiting for this
Yes.
forever,
It's
forever.
it's a movie
And
for anyone who grew up with the original, not for kids or anything.
no,
It's
it's not for
definitely
kids. It's
it's
definitely not for
definitely for
kids.
our
Like
age range.
if I see a kid
Yeah.
in the theater, I will punch him. Just kidding. I'm not a kid puncher. I do not condone this.
Well, that makes one of us. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding too. No.
Uh, like I enjoyed the fact that they didn't like just do a whole time jump and they actually just picked it up from where
Yeah.
they left off. Because like a lot of times when you have like movies, like the one that comes to mind is Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3. That one makes sense though because it's like
It's
the
also
huge
about
gap.
growing up, I suppose.
Right, right. And like the whole theme of that trilogy was like kids growing up with the toys. But like with this one, I was really really happy that they continued what the like all the themes and development they had from the last movie. I also felt like it was more of a continuation of the first movie than it was like a true sequel. Because I always feel like sequels, it's either going to be the same movie with a bunch of needless side plots. And there was some side plots in this movie, but I didn't feel like it weighed it down and it's like, oh, this has got a case of sequelitis. I felt like this was more of a part two than a sequel. You know, like
It
it's still the
was
first movie.
Yeah, it was really an extension of the first rather than like a disjointed entry.
Right. I also liked how they focused more on the parents this time, or not the parents, but the mother. You know, like I liked how that was the
Yeah.
center, and then like it was about like the dad's relationship with the kids too. That was really awesome too.
It's kind of a reversal of the first one because the first one was very focused on Bob's solo mission, whereas
Right.
this one was more focused on Helen's mission, and
Right.
their personal experiences with the family are flipped.
Like what I also found interesting too. It like was a nice little subtle commentary on because I think the first movie was a big representation of like the superheroes like of past, but like specifically like 50s superheroes. So with
Yeah,
that, it came with like the stereotype of the in the 50s, the man would go off for work and the kid would stay, or not the kid, but the mother would stay home and take care of the kids. And I thought that this was like a whole nice little commentary. Like it switches that, and now it's like the mother is doing the job and the dad's a stay-at-home dad. I don't know. Like I thought that was like a whole nice modern twist, you know.
yeah.
But yeah, you definitely I know were much more in depth with the first Incredibles. Like, would you
I
like
was.
to talk about like that and then compare that to the Incredibles 2 here?
Sure. I know the Incredibles 2 actually had a lot, possibly more political subtext. It felt more ideologically pointed than the first one. But I couldn't actually catch everything that was going on for the second one. That it's actually a film that I feel like I need to rewatch to get the tiny details.
I know. I
Somewhat
feel like I
like
feel so
Hereditary,
bad.
yeah.
I feel so bad. We both need to like watch both of these like again.
Yeah. They're both surprise or well, Hereditary. It's not surprising. That's really detailed because it's an A24 movie. It's an indie. Incredibles 2, for an animated movie that's kind of geared for kids, it is really actually very detailed. Uh, Much like Brad Bird's first movie. The first movie I think is really interesting because a lot of people talk about its kind of ideology of the self, like how not everyone could be special, how there are some people that because they're special they have an obligation to be so. But I also think it's a lot about family dynamics, and how in a family everyone needs to work together and have their place. And it's not like one can be better than the rest. So the movie, I think, was really about how our place as being special is as ourself, and that's our place in society. It's not defined by someone else, and we shouldn't uh, be above everyone else or like have to dial it down. But our place is as ourself, and that's what I feel like the first movie was saying.
So what do you feel like the second movie, like aside from the politics of it, like what do you feel like the second movie's message was?
Oh man. And see, I've seen the first one like a dozen times maybe, so it's easier for me to remember the
Right.
details of that one.
I mean, like this movie was, it really did, like I said, continue on from the first, and that's why I feel like it's harder for me to say like this is, it has one simple message that's different. I feel like it's a lot of continuation of the last themes. It builds upon the relationship between the family. Uh, Oh, another thing is like I like how they actually gave Edna a bit more time in the movie.
Yeah,
Like she even gets a little bit of development. I feel like everybody that you see in the first movie gets a little bit more time and a little bit more development, which is good for a sequel. You wanna
it
you
is. Yeah,
wanna really stretch your characters out and make sure you know them. And like I've seen the first one 4 or 5 times, and I always kind of felt like the kid, like Dash, was always he was underdeveloped compared to Violet.
mm,
And I still kind of feel that way with this movie. Like I feel like Violet has had more time. It kind of feels like Dash's character is just the little annoying younger brother sometimes.
yeah. I think in Incredibles 2, they definitely do spend more time developing Violet because she has a larger part in the plot with what was the other kid's name?
God, I forget his name. He also forgot a lot of things too. I
Yeah,
think
it's
it
true. Tony.
was
Tony.
Tony. That's right,
Yeah,
Tony.
just looked it
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Right.
It definitely like how the first one kind of touches into like the kids' independence from the parents and like working together.
Yeah.
Like this movie definitely it puts more of a focus on that too, which I like too. I don't know if this is me like just interpreting it this way, but it's sort of like the kids just discovering some independence, and then like if they were to ever make a third movie, it would be interesting to see if they go off of this and like the kids go and do something themselves.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see where they take this if they take it further.
Yeah, maybe we'll get to see it in another 13 years. We'll see how it comes out then.
Yeah, yeah, that would be true. Uh, yeah, and with this one, they kind of wrapped up a subplot that they set up in the first film, which was superheroes becoming criminalized. And in this one,
Yeah.
yeah, they recriminalize them, and I almost wonder where they're going to go with a third one if they do make one, because now that superheroes are legal, you've got that
Aren't they
one
legal
subplot.
now? I thought they were legal.
Well, yeah, now that they're legal, after the second one, I wonder how they're going to explore that. Like, if they uh, have those repercussions with the law again, and if the public starts having second guesses about it.
Yeah. See, that's where I would get a little cautious with
Yeah,
the next movie to come out, because that's when it would get like a sequel where they just don't know what to do. And I think like you said, they resolved a subplot from the first movie. I think what made this work so well for me, like I said, was that it was a continuation of the first one.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Were there any like things that you were kind of nitpicky about? Like, I know there's one thing that I was particularly like nitpicky is the whole Jack thing. This is
yeah.
gonna be like a kind of
It was a little bit
spoiler.
overpowered, I suppose.
Well, like that wasn't the part that like that's not the nitpicky part. Like this is the super nitpicky part for me. I was like, I like how they kept that a whole like his powers a whole secret from Helen. But I thought that she knew, because at the end of the first one, and again a spoiler, but you guys should have already seen this movie. Like how what's it syndrome like flies up with the baby and just like gets
Yeah,
all like his powers and brings him back down. I thought that the family like witnessed that. Like,
yeah.
am I wrong about that?
I always figured they saw it too, but then again, they were high up in the air, and
I
maybe it
mean,
wasn't clear. So I guess there's room for them to not have seen it,
right.
but I always figured they did.
Maybe, and I'm just thinking maybe here, like maybe Bob was the only one. I'm gonna watch like tonight the first one just for this. This is how like methodical I'm gonna be with it. But yeah, I mean overall, I'd probably give this one a 9. Like I'd say this is actually no, I'd give it around like somewhere between an 8 and a 9. I can't really give a specific number here. I definitely enjoyed this as much as the first one. I can't really say I enjoy it more though.
Yeah, I think I enjoyed this one a little bit less than the first one. If we're gonna go back to nitpicking, there were some aesthetic deviations I felt that there were from the first. Uh, like the
Like
first
what?
has like the first has a very specific color palette that it's very 50s ish, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah, it really
this
does capture that essence.
this one I felt like, especially with new superheroes, there were a lot more neons and the colors were more saturated, and it felt a little bit out of place with what I was expecting. And the music too, even though I love it, had more funk and rock elements. The drums are mixed more prominently at the front rather than the heavier jazz sound and the more or not the
Right.
classical, but the 20th century-ish orchestral style too. Uh,
You
yeah,
know what's interesting? Now that you bring that up, it makes me like think going back to the whole flipping of what the first one was, and like the modern commentary, like the modern
yeah,
superhero. I kind of feel like maybe that was intentional. Like the
yeah. That could
change
have
up
been
of the color
actually.
palette and the music, like to also say like this is the modern time. Like I don't know, like I didn't particularly notice that, but the fact that you've noticed that makes this interesting. Like the amount of detail that they put into movies, like it's just interesting for me to watch movies and see particular things that just add up and like set up too.
For me, the strong point of this film that was also the strong point of the previous film was the family dynamic. It's a very different family dynamic than Hereditary, but you've got all these like trivial arguments and these small misunderstandings that make it feel a little bit more grounded. Like any scene where they're at the dinner table arguing about something, it reminds me of growing up with siblings.
Oh yeah, hell
Yeah.
yeah! I especially like the part where like was it in this one or I can't remember, but there's definitely points where Dash is screwing with Violet. Like I
Yeah.
thought like they saw we all saw this in the trailer, like when he's going back and forth with like the
Washing
dinner
his
time
hands.
scene.
Yeah.
That part made me laugh so hard because I was
Yeah.
like, that's exactly who I
It's
was as a little kid. Like I was just like, I'm gonna
it,
give no fucks and have all of this mess everywhere. And to
yeah,
an extent, I still am.
it's like they're not changed like humans because of the superpowers from a family dynamic standpoint.
No.
It's like a real family that just happens to have superpowers, and then they use that for all these great like comedic gags. And it's like really clever and entertaining throughout, and I felt like
Yeah.
that's where this movie thrived.
Well, I feel like that's a good thing that this is a Pixar movie, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like the Pixar always like they have some unique ideas with. Granted, sometimes I'm not always hot
Yeah.
about it, but they always like come up with unique ideas, and like they base their story around something like normal, but the
with a spin.
yeah, it's like a little bit of spin, like I'm on the Wikipedia page for Incredibles 2, and I just see Ratatouille here, like that.
Yeah.
That one too. Like, there's there's a huge emphasis on family in Pixar films, obviously because they're a family company. Like, they're making family films from. But like, they always try to make a good dynamic, and I think that's great for building characters. Like this one, I feel like it's an easier way to build character when you have a family dynamic, because it's very easy for everyone to relate to families. Like just
Yeah.
it can be very easy, and plus you can make it unique too. The good thing about this, the one thing I really appreciate about Incredibles is its own original content. They've come up with their own superheroes and a whole universe.
Yeah.
Practically before the whole superhero universe thing.
Yeah,
Like,
near the
became
beginning
super
of
big.
the superhero craze.
Right, like in
Yeah, it was-
2005 when the movie came out, or actually it's 2004. I've been wrong this entire time. But when it came out, in the movie there was already a superhero universe established, in which you're looking at is basically the end of an era, like within the universe, and it's like you're saying, it's these characters, specifically Bob, coming to grips, like at the start of it, that he has to live a normal life. I think like one thing that I like about the movie, like these two particular movies, is like they focus on like when you're in a place where you don't want to be, like you're doing something, like when Bob was working at the insurance company, like he felt so drained.
Yeah.
And it really like encourages the like you as a viewer and everybody else to just like take yourself away from that situation and like actually pursue what you like. I felt like that was one of the things that resonates with me when I watch these movies.
Yeah, me too. It's really about finding something you love, or something that you feel like is unique to you or makes you unique, and then exploring it and embracing it.
Yeah. I'm also taking a look at the cast. Like most of the people that we have seen, like everybody from the original came back, but like it's funny to see that Bob Odenkirk, like I recognize immediately,
Yeah.
like, oh, that's Saul from Breaking Bad was in this movie, but I never noticed that Jonathan Banks, like who plays Rick, the agent that's always helping out the Parr family. I I didn't realize that was Jonathan Banks.
I didn't.
Like,
wow, I just realized that
yeah,
too.
that was Mike, dude. And I think I didn't realize it until I saw this movie. Like you did. It's kind of cool to just go back and watch some films that have like big actors now today that they weren't big at all when they were coming out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so like I'd say that these two movies are the most they're so different from each other, but yet at the same time I noticed the similarities, specifically with the family dynamics. Like one focuses on the fluffy side and the other side is very dark and so depressing.
Yep.
So depressing.
Yep, very different movies with very similar core ideas. Well,
Yes.
yeah.
Family.
Yeah.
So I think that's gonna pretty much wrap it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.